Welcome to Making Greener Choices for Your Yard. We're joined tonight by representatives from the Glen Ellyn Environmental Commission and Midwest Grows Green. So Jacqueline, you can go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Brenna. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Jacqueline Kazaza, and I'm a member of the Glen Ellyn Environmental Commission. The Environmental Commission is part of village government, and we are dedicated to learning and sharing information about the environment with the village and its residents. So our goal in sharing this information is to help care for village resources and basically to keep Glen Ellyn as a healthy and beautiful place for us all to live and enjoy together. We sponsor a number of events in the village each year. So a couple of the ones I'm going to run through, and you can find information about these on the village website. We will be participating in an upcoming event at Lake Ellyn on April 24th for Earth Day. That's also with the Glen Ellyn Park District and Go Green Glen Ellyn. Additionally, on April 30th, we will be hosting a recycling extravaganza where you can, at the COD parking lot, where you can bring a number of items that are hard to recycle at the curb, such as styrofoam, books, paint, bikes, light bulbs, and lots more. There to be recycled, and we're working with different organizations to do that to keep those items out of our landfill. So there's more information about that on the village website. There are some other upcoming environmental events because after all, April is Earth Month, so there's just tons of stuff going on all the time. The Glen Ellyn Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring a paper shredding event on April 16th. You can find information about that with the chamber. The Glen Ellyn Park District and Go Green Glen Ellyn are doing a gently used sports equipment swap at Ackerman, also on April 16th. And I think that's it on my long list. So
can I jump in really quick and just say
yeah.
The library is also doing
please.
a recycling drive this month. We're collecting crayons and bread tags to be given to Scarce, and we have boxes for that here at the library.
Awesome. Great. So there's tons of ways you can get involved in the community and helping to make Glen Ellyn a greener place to live. And one of the easiest ways and best places to start is in your own backyard. So we're really excited to be presenting with the library again tonight as part of our Green Gathering series. And our topic tonight is making greener choices in your yard. So spring is here, although today definitely felt more like winter, but nevertheless, I'm going around town and I'm seeing lots of people already out cutting grass and blowing around leaves and getting our outdoor areas ready for spring. So much work goes into taking care of our grass and our natural areas. And one of the biggest questions I know I have when I see all this activity is, can we have a beautiful yard? Is it possible without chemicals and fertilizer? So our guest speaker tonight can hopefully answer that question and many more. So we're joined by Ryan Anderson from Midwest Grows Green. Midwest Grows Green has an ambitious mission to make all public and private parks, playing fields, and outdoor landscapes in the Midwest organic by 2030. I think that's an awesome goal, and hopefully, Ryan, you can tell us more about that. Ryan has extensive experience advancing science-based solutions in urban and residential communities. He has a master's of sustainable solutions from Arizona State University, and he holds a dual bachelor's degree in biology and electronic journalism from Butler University. So thanks so much for joining us tonight, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. I'm gonna share my screen. Everyone can see it, right? All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me. Just as a disclaimer, I did just get a kitten on Saturday, and he's a little bit hyper, so he's currently hidden, but he might be a distraction. Hopefully not. But if I do any pauses, I apologize in advance. But my name is Ryan Anderson. I'm the Community IPM Manager for the Integrated Pest Management Institute of North America. We're an environmental nonprofit based out of Madison, Wisconsin, and our mission is to advance sustainability in agriculture and communities through market mechanisms based in integrated pest management. There are a lot of definitions out there for integrated pest management, or IPM for short, but for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to use the following. IPM is an environmentally sensitive and cost-effective approach to weed, insect, disease, and other pest management that consolidates all available necessary techniques into an integrated program to keep pest populations at acceptable levels and to avoid adverse effects. So in a nutshell, IPM is using all the tools in your toolbox to control for a pest or weed. Today, we're going to be talking about sustainable landscaping and natural lawn care in particular. And there are many control measures available to us before we resort to pesticides. First, I'm going to talk most about cultural practices. That's such things as mowing high, watering properly, overseeding bare soil, aerating compacted soil, fertilizing organically, and so much more. Next, we have our biological and mechanical controls. Biological controls could be such things as using beneficial nematodes to kill for grubs. And then mechanical could be mowing off the tops of dandelions' heads before they reproduce. And then finally, IPM does allow for the use of chemicals or pesticides, but only as a last resort. And if we're deciding to use these chemicals, we want to make sure we use the least amount of the least harmful product. So just a little bit more background about myself and the IPM Institute. My position, as I mentioned before, is Community IPM Manager. And so I manage three large initiatives or programs. The first one is our Pest Defense or Healthy Schools, which encourages school IPM and is a free online training of school IPM for more than 9 different occupations, ranging from a school nurse all the way to a facility manager. Then we have our Green Shield Certified, which is a sustainability standard right now for indoor pest control. But in May, we're going to introduce Green Shield Certified for landscapes that I'll talk about a little bit later, and that's for sustainable landscaping. And then finally, we have Midwest Grows Green, which I spend most of my time on, and I've been a part of since its beginning back in 2015. And so Midwest Grows Green's mission is to educate and empower citizens to take sustainable landscaping action that reduces harmful runoff into our waterways, protects the health of our most vulnerable citizens, and reduces negative impacts of pesticides on non-target species such as pollinators. We started as an initiative to educate urban homeowners because we thought that there was a huge information gap between how we're managing our lawns and how we should be managing our lawns. Turf grass is actually our nation's largest irrigated crop. It covers more than 40 million acres in our nation, which is more than triple the amount of acreage as devoted to irrigated corn. And as you can imagine, we use a lot of synthetic pesticides, fertilizer, and water to maintain these 40 million acres. Looking at pesticides alone, the U.S. lawn and garden sector applies nearly 90 million pounds of this product each year. The EPA found that 82% of urban homeowners will apply pesticides on their lawns. And the National Wildlife Federation did a study that found that the average urban homeowner will apply up to 3 to 10 times more pesticides per acre on their lawns than what farmers will apply on their crops. Now, I just want to take some time to clarify what I mean when I say pesticides today. The IPM Institute defines pesticides as any chemical that is designed to kill, eliminate, or repel an animal, plant, or insect. This is a very general definition, but it is also the definition used by the US EPA. And it includes insecticides, rodenticides, herbicides, fungicides, and larvicides. All these chemicals end in "cide." All of them are designed to kill living things. And often the biological processes that these chemicals impact are not unique to their intended targets. Our high use of these products has far-reaching impacts for our children, our pets, our wildlife, and our water quality. Looking at human health alone, studies have linked pesticides to various neurological, behavioral, hormonal, reproductive, and immune system disorders. Of the 30 most commonly used lawn pesticides, studies have found that 19 of them are carcinogenic, 13 are linked to birth defects, 21 to reproductive effects, 15 are known neurotoxins, 26 are linked to liver and kidney damage, and 27 are known asthma triggers. And for Midwest Grows Green, we are most concerned about these health effects for our children, because children are still developing and they exhibit different behaviors to us adults, such as rolling around in the grass or putting grass in their mouths that make them more susceptible to pesticide exposure. Case in point, the rise in asthma in children over the past 20 years or so. Between the years of 2002 and 2010, asthma rates in children increased by 6 to 15% each year. And one of the contributing factors to this rise is certainly spray pesticides. One study found that children exposed to spray pesticides in their first year of life quadrupled their chance of contracting the disease. You might have also heard that there's a link between some of the pesticides we use in our lawns and pediatric cancers, or cancers in children. This is a graph of cancers in males and females ages 15 to 19 years from the American Cancer Society between the years of 1995 and 2016. And you can see many of these cancers are on the rise in this age group. And there are a lot of contributing factors. It's certainly not just our use of spray pesticides, but some of these diseases that you see on the screen have been linked to some of the more popular herbicides we apply. I want to point out one in particular, which is NHL, that kind of light purple line, which is on the rise for both males and females. That is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I want to point this disease out in particular because of this man. This man's name is Dwayne Johnson. And for a couple years, he was a school groundskeeper that used the herbicide product Ranger Pro. During that time span, he accidentally covered himself in the product twice, and he developed terminal non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. In 2015, he decided to sue the producer of Ranger Pro, which is Monsanto, for the damages caused on his life and for misleading the public on the health and safety of their products. Mr. Johnson, in 2018, a district court in San Francisco ruled that Bayer, which is the company that now owns Monsanto, must pay Mr. Johnson $289 million for the damages caused on his life and for misleading the public on the health and safety of their products. Now, a little background on Ranger Pro. Ranger Pro's active ingredient is glyphosate, which is also the active ingredient in Roundup, the most sold herbicide product in the world. Now, in 2015, the International Association for the Research on Cancer classified glyphosate as a probable carcinogen. And this sent shockwaves through the agricultural, the US lawn and garden sector, and the natural resources sector, because glyphosate is used so frequently. It is what we call a non-selective herbicide. It's very effective at killing all vegetation, invasive weeds, or just weeds in general. And so after Mr. Johnson had this ruling, thousands of lawsuits have filed. Now, the case for Mr. Johnson was settled actually last year, I believe, and Bayer only paid him about $80 million, but thousands more of these lawsuits have filed, and we're seeing more and more restrictions on glyphosate by municipalities. And in fact, Bayer announced last year that they are going to phase out all glyphosate products from home and garden centers. So hardware stores, Lowe's, things like that. They will not have glyphosate products. Instead, Roundup will have a new active ingredient, which could also have environmental and health risks. So one of the things that we heard during these lawsuits or these hearings is that the half-life of this product, glyphosate, is relatively short. So the risk of being exposed to this product is also relatively low. But as this graph will show you, that's not exactly the case. It's a little hard to read, so I'm going to walk everyone through it. This is a look at 2,4-D presence inside a home pre and post application. Now, 2,4-D is the active ingredient in Scott's Turf Builder Weed and Feed, which is the most sold lawn and garden product on the market. 2,4-D is also the active ingredient in many of the herbicides that are used in sports and recreational field management, because it is a selective herbicide, which means it controls dicot weeds like clover, chickweed, and dandelions, but it's going to leave our monocots or our grasses relatively unharmed. So you can already see the use for lawn and garden care. So this product is being applied outside our homes, but this study is trying to see if this product gets inside our homes. And so they tested 6 different homes. You can see home A, home B, home C, home D, home E, home F. And on the x-axis are different rooms within these homes: the entryway, the living room, the dining room. And then we have 3 different types of bar graphs. First, we have our white bar graphs, which is 2,4-D presence inside a home pre-application. And what they're doing is they're vacuuming up air particles and they're measuring 2,4-D in parts per billion. Then we have our black columns, which is 2,4-D presence inside a home 24 hours after application. And they're using the vacuum method. Finally, we have our striped columns, which is 2,4-D presence inside a home 24 hours after application, but just using a different method of wipes to determine if there's 2,4-D presence. So what you see on this slide is those black columns. The next most frequent are the striped columns. And then finally, there's very little white columns. So what this is telling us is that even though we're applying these products outside our homes, somehow, some way, they're getting inside our homes. You could leave a window open. You could track it on your shoes. Your pet could bring it in on its fur. And once it gets inside our homes, theoretically, that half-life that we were talking about increases because you don't have that sunlight, you don't have that soil microbiology, and you don't have that heat to break down these chemicals as rapidly as it would in an outdoor environment. And then now that the half-life has increased, the risk of exposure for pets and children also increases. Speaking about pets, pets are very vulnerable to these chemicals, specifically our dogs. Dogs, like children, are small in size. They also roll around the grass, but they're digging in the dirt and they're licking their paws. And in fact, studies have found that dogs exposed to herbicide-treated lawns double their chance of contracting canine lymphoma. In certain breeds, their chance of contracting bladder cancer increases by 4 to 7 times. Now, if these chemicals are going to be harmful to our dogs, they're also bound to be harmful to our wildlife. Looking back at that research of the 30 most commonly used lawn pesticides, of those 30, 16 of them are harmful to birds. 24 are harmful to fish and other aquatic wildlife, and 11 are deadly to our most important pollinator species, the bees. And I just want to talk about bees a little bit more because you've probably heard bees have been on a global decline, both honeybees as well as our native bees. And one of the contributing factors is certainly our use of this class of insecticides called neonicotinoids. Thousands of studies have found that neonics are neurotoxic to bees, even at very low rates or low doses. And this is a large concern because neonics are what we call a systemic insecticide, which means they're brought up from the roots of the plant, and then they stay in the plant tissue for an extended period of time. And how bees come in contact with them is through pollination, through the flowers. And even if they don't get a high enough dose to die, their motor skills can still be reduced, and their survivability over time also can be reduced. And given that there are so many other stress factors for bees and pollinators, such as habitat loss, forage loss, varroa mites, and more, we just don't want to continue to contribute to this issue. And so Midwest Grows Green recommends avoiding neonic products whenever possible. The most popular lawn and garden neonic product is called imidacloprid, is the active ingredient in Merit and a lot of grub control products, as well as some rose control products to try to avoid. We just don't need to contribute this stress to bees and other pollinators. The final effect I want to talk about today before going to the solution is water quality. A United States Geological Survey found pesticides in all rivers, lakes, and streams that they tested, and up to 1/3 of the underground aquifers that they tested. Now, when you think about the rise in urbanization, this shouldn't be all too surprising, right? Because we're seeing more of these impervious surfaces that's facilitating the transfer of pesticides from our lawns into our waterways and bypassing the natural filtration services that Mother Earth provides. But this isn't just a concern for pesticides, it's also a concern for the fertilizers that we're applying onto our lawns and gardens. You might have seen the aerial of the massive dead zone that is out there in the Gulf of Mexico. And if you are applying synthetic lawn fertilizers, you are contributing in part to that dead zone because these fertilizers contain nitrogen and phosphorus, and these are limiting nutrients for algae. So when algae comes in contact with them, they start blooming. Eventually that algae dies and microbes break down that algae, and that decomposition process requires oxygen. So these microbes are sucking out the oxygen from our waterways and making it very hard for other aquatic wildlife to live. So when I talk about the solution of natural lawn care today, yes, we're concerned about the pesticides that we're applying onto our lawns and gardens, but we're also concerned about those synthetic fertilizers, and we want to reduce our applications of those fertilizers too. So let's hop right into the solution of the natural lawn care approach. And Midwest Grows Green defines natural lawn care as a systemic approach that refrains from using synthetic chemicals and focuses on building healthy soil, deep roots, and strong shoots to support healthy, resilient turf grass. It's a little hard to see, but I bolded 3 terms of building healthy soil, deep roots, and strong shoots. I view natural lawn care as adding to this living organism that we have with the soil as well as the turf grass. So we always want to add healthy soil, deep roots, and strong shoots. We never want to take that away from the turf grass. That's what conventional landscaping does. It's a product-based approach. I call it a product-based approach. 4-step, 5-step programs you might have heard. Apply this pesticide, apply this fertilizer at this time of the year, and you're going to get that green, weed-free lawn that is so desirable in the United States. That doesn't fall in line with biology, and it doesn't add to the ecosystem. It's trying to take something away from the ecosystem and those weeds and those pests. And in the process, it's also taking away all these beneficial microorganisms that I'll talk about in a little bit. Natural lawn care takes a different approach. It's about the processes. It's about aerating that compacted soil. It's about adding overseed and to have a dense turf grass canopy. It's about fertilizing organically and using organic matter dense materials like compost, grass clippings, and leaf mulch. And there's so many other processes that I'll talk about that go into natural lawn care and building a healthy, dense turf grass system that is going to outcompete weeds and pests for air, water, and sunlight and nutrients. So whenever I talk about natural lawn care, I like to compare it to how we should be managing our own bodies. When you think about our own bodies, there are 2 things that we can control the most, and that is our diet and our exercise. And these are the 2 things that we can control the most for our lawns too. For the diet, it's about understanding the needs of our turf grass as well as our soil, and then feeding our soil with organic matter dense materials like organic fertilizers, leaf mulch, grass clippings, and compost. And then for the exercise, it's about culturally maintaining that dense, deeply rooted turf grass system that is going to outcompete those weeds and pests for air, water, and sunlight and nutrients. So starting with the diet, if we are going on a diet with our own bodies, often the first step we take is to assess our initial state, because how can we get to our desirable state without knowing where we're starting from? And for our bodies, we can do a couple things. We can weigh ourselves and say we'll shave off 5 to 10 pounds from there. We can look at our diet and exercise schedule over the past 2 weeks and make some adjustments. Or we could go to a doctor or nutritionist and let them tell us what we should be doing for our bodies. These are all things that we can do for our lawns too, and it's called getting a soil test. Midwest Grows Green recommends getting a soil test once every 3 years. And these soil tests tell you a wealth of information. First, it'll look at the nutrients, the primary macronutrients of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, as well as the secondary macronutrients of calcium and potassium that have importance in terms of nutrient exchange. And then some of the micronutrients like iron and cadmium. Next, it'll look at your pH. Is it too acidic? Is it too basic? It'll tell you your organic matter content, which I'll talk about the importance in a couple of slides. And finally, it'll often offer a soil texture analysis. Do you have a high clay soil, or do you have high sand soil, or something in between? And once you get all that information, the soil test provider will often offer a set of recommendations for how to manage your lawn and garden. And when you get that set of recommendations, it's important to know that there's 16 essential nutrients for healthy soil and plant life. Synthetic fertilizers often only focus on 3 of these: nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Meanwhile, organic fertilizers not only provide more of these nutrients, but release these nutrients over an extended period of time so that they stay in your soil longer. It's also important to note that organic and synthetic fertilizers work differently. Synthetic fertilizers tend to be petroleum and mineral based, which means they send their nutrients straight to the plant. So with a synthetic fertilizer, you're often going to get quick green up. But that's not necessarily what you want, because you could be getting a lot of top growth, but the shoots is not the most important part of the grass plant. The most important part of the grass plant is in fact the roots, because the roots contain your nutrients as well as your hormones. And those nutrients and hormones are going to tell your grass when to grow. So if you have a deep, dense root system, the grass will tell itself to green up real quick next spring. And you might not even need a fertilizer for spring lawn care. So that's what organics do. Organic fertilizers, they need the microbiology, they need the earthworms to break down. So that's a slower process, and they go across the entire living soil organism, not just the top layer that we see with synthetic fertilizers. So I put on a link in the chat of all of our different resources that we have available at midwestgrowsgreen.org. bit.ly/MGG and CAS resources and uncaps. One of those fact sheets is in fact products for your natural lawn. It covers many of the popular organic fertilizers, the different nutrients that they provide, when to apply it, how to apply it. And this is just a graphic of that information that is shared on that fact sheet. One thing that I would say about that fact sheet and just organic fertilizers and fertilizers in general is they still tend to stress the nutrients, and nutrients are absolutely important. All life needs nutrients, but we're talking about caring for this complex living soil organism. And when we're talking about the soil organism, nutrients is just one tiny part of that organism. There's also structure to our soil, and the best structure for our soil is sponge-like. If you think about a sponge, it's going to hold on to a lot of water, right? But if you squeeze it, it's going to let that water go. That's what we want with our soil. We want our soil to hold on to a lot of water, air, and nutrients, but we don't want it to hold on so tightly that's going to suffocate our plant's roots and our microbiology that is in the soil. And the best way to get that sponge-like soil structure is by adding organic matter. That could be leaf mulch, that could be grass clippings, and that could be compost. One of the fact sheets on our resources page is using and sourcing compost for your yard. And it covers some great resources of compost, local resources of compost, how to evaluate it, and then also how to apply it. So this is just a graphic on this slide of what application of compost looks like. First, you want to core aerate, which is taking these holes about 3 to 6 inches deep, leaving the holes on the ground. And then you want to spread the compost at about a quarter to half inch in coverage. And then if you're ever applying compost, you want to accommodate that with some more overseed, because that compost will really help your seed germinate. Okay, let's say you have been applying compost, top dressing, you're recycling your grass clippings, you're using leaf mulch, you're using organic fertilizers, you're not using synthetic fertilizers, and your lawn still looks like this. Now, can you use an herbicide? First, I hope your lawn doesn't look like this, and it shouldn't if you're doing management right. But if it does look like this, my answer would be no, you can't use an herbicide yet because you haven't done the exercise or fitness schedule. Every diet is best accommodated with exercise. And whenever I talk about lawn fitness, I like to bring up this graphic. It's called a read your weeds table. And on the left column are popular weeds that you'll find in your lawn: clover, crabgrass, dandelions. And then on the top row are their favorable conditions: compacted soil, mowing height too low, low pH, excessive watering, and drainage. And what most people can glean from this graphic is that if you culturally maintain a dense, deeply rooted turf grass system, you're going to eliminate many of these favorable conditions. Let me take you through an example. Look at annual bluegrass. Its three favorable conditions are compacted soil, mowing height too low, and excessive watering. All three can be managed culturally. Compacted soil, I already talked about compost. That's a great way to reduce compaction. I also talked about aeration, which is our next best option to reduce soil compaction, because you're taking out these holes about 3 to 6 inches deep, leaving them on the lawn to let them dry, and then mowing them back over to return their nutrients to the soil. We recommend aerating at least in the early fall. And if you're dealing with severe compaction on your lawn, you could benefit from a late spring aeration as well. Mowing height too low. We recommend mowing no lower than 3 inches. For home lawns, it really should be up to 4 inches. And we say this for 2 reasons. First, if you think about a weed seed needs sunlight to germinate. So if you have a tall canopy, that weed seed won't get access to the sunlight, and it has a less chance of germinating. The second reason is we have something in turf grass management called the third rule, which means you don't want to take off a third of the grass blade at a time, at a mowing. If you take more than a third, that's really going to stress out the grass, and the grass is going to tell itself to grow its shoots and not its roots. And remember, the roots is the most important part of the grass plant. So if you are mowing your lawn at 2 inches, you only have about 1 inch before you have to do your next mowing. But if you're raising that height to 4 inches, you can allow your grass to grow 2 inches before your next mowing. So you can get away with less frequent mowing. All right, finally, excessive watering. We recommend watering no more than 1 inch per week. And this should be one thorough watering, not spread out over the week from day to day. And the best time to water is between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. Next best time is 8 p.m. to midnight. And that thorough watering, once again, helps ensure you have those deep roots that are so necessary for our lawns. Okay. So here's what the lawn care diet and exercise looks like combined in this spring. Now we're already past March, but if you haven't already, make sure you're sharpening your mower blades because you want clean cuts. You don't want to damage the grass. Clean up any winter debris from your lawn too. April, fill in bare spots with a 50-50 mix of compost, soil, and seed. I didn't really talk about seed, but seed is Natural Lawn Care's best weed management tool. If you are growing grass in bare soil areas, you won't be growing weeds in bare soil areas. So it's all about having that dense turf grass system and choking out those weeds with seed. And anytime you are going to do an overseed, make sure you're doing an aeration so that you can ensure proper seed to soil contact and help the seed germinate better. Finally, in April, you can apply compost tea, which is basically fermented compost. May, if you haven't already, test your soil. Remember, once every 3 years, and then aerate, overseed, and fertilize. Now, if this seems a little bit cumbersome, I hope you can take solace that Midwest Grows Green is here to help you. On our resources page, we have a natural lawn care calendar that goes step by step, month by month, what you should be doing. It has these steps as well as more steps that you can take for your lawn. But we also have a number of other resources on midwestgrowsgreen.org that I'll cover just very briefly to end this presentation. Jacqueline mentioned that our vision is to make all public and private parks playing fields, and outdoor landscapes in the Midwest organic by 2030. It's a lofty vision, but we think we can get there. And we think we can get there, but we still have a ways to go. This is, you can see an image of our current pesticide-free parks. It's about 40 across the Midwest. So we have a long way to go, but we have a lot of different programs to support homeowners, as well as park districts, municipalities, school districts, and basically any landscape manager. And so to achieve our vision, Midwest Grows Green is going to identify, teach, and implement sustainable landscaping. For identification, we are going to be certifying 3 companies each year to Green Shield Certify for landscapes, which I'll cover in just a little bit, for a total of 27 certified companies by 2030. The Green Shield Certified is a very rigorous program. So we're going to teach sustainable landscaping companies as well as managers of all landscapes so that they can achieve this Green Shield certification. So we're going to have 2 spring webinars and 1 fall workshop each year. So that would be 18 spring webinars in total and 9 fall workshops in total by 2030. And finally, for implementation, we are going to have 10 Green Shield certified for landscapes approved each year for a total of 90 by the year 2030. So first, looking at how we're going to identify sustainable landscaping. You might have seen in the marketing, there's a lot of people that say organic, natural, integrated pest management, sustainable. We want to help customers better identify what an actual sustainable landscaping service is. And to do that, we're going to introduce Green Shield Certified, or GSC for in short, for landscapes. And this is based or structured around our GSC for facilities, which has been in operation for about 20 years or so. And it certifies currently indoor pest control providers. And it's a very rigorous program. So all these companies need to pass an on-site evaluation from an IPM Institute staff or a contracted worker. And that evaluation, they need to achieve a set of minimum requirements, as well as score 80% or above on some scored practices. And they need to accomplish this they need to pass this 3-year certification evaluation every 3 years, obviously. And then they also need to do an annual renewal form that tells us what products they're using to make sure that the products are compliant with our Green Shield certified standards. So we're applying that same process to Green Shield certified for landscapes. And we are able to certify landscape architects, as well as lawn care managers and native plant our natural resource management providers. And so it's all smart, effective pest and weed control, and it ensures that we're minimizing pesticide use for fewer risks to people and the environment. And basically, if the company is Green Shield certified, that is a good indication to you that they are applying sustainable practices because they have passed all these requirements that we have set for these standards. So we are introducing this standard actually this May. So next month, we are having 2 webinars that I'll talk about a little bit on May 10th and May 12th to introduce those standards. It's very rigorous. As I mentioned, it's going to be hard to achieve, but we want to help as many companies, as many managers achieve these standards as possible. And to do that, we're going to be having educational sessions through our Lawn and Land Forum that has been in operation since 2016. And you can find our free resources at lawnandland.org. And these resources are really for the large landscape manager, the sports and recreational field manager, or the natural resource manager. And we have case studies where we interview actual practitioners that have applied many of these sustainable landscaping practices that we've covered, like compost top dressing on athletic fields, or switching up your aeration program to handle all the compaction that these athletic fields get. And then we also have a natural resource section that talks about how we can reduce our glyphosate use in natural areas, because that is the most frequently used herbicide in invasive weed management. So I encourage you to look at lawnandland.org. Everything is open source there. And then finally, we're going to help implement sustainable landscaping through something that we call our technical assistance program. And this is a full comprehensive technical assistance where we help implement sustainable landscaping, plan for sustainable landscaping, as well as market sustainable landscaping. And I'm going to take you through an example of what the work that we did through the Technical Assistance Program, or TAP for short, for the city of Elgin. This is an aerial of Elgin's Lord's Park. It's something that I call a destination park. It has a museum on it. It has a zoo. It's 100+ acres. So it's a beautiful park. Thousands of people visit each year. And we got the opportunity to work on this 3-acre turf grass stand on the north end of the park. They wanted to grow turf grass here, and they were having trouble growing turf grass here. And we want to grow turf grass without any synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. So we had our soil scientist come out, do a site visit. He took this aerial of it. And he determined, you can see out in the basin right here in that blue area, you can see some black spots. And that is flooded areas. It's flooded there almost year round. And so we want to address that, because obviously flooding is going to waterlog the roots of turf grass. So that's a concern. It's also unsightly. It gives off some noxious smells, and it can be a breeding ground for mosquitoes. And so what we found is on the east and west slopes, you can see a lot of brown spots. That's basically bare soil, a lot of gravel on that soil on the west and east slopes. Grass isn't growing on those slopes, and weeds really aren't growing. There are a couple weeds growing, but vegetation really can't deal with this amount of compaction that we're seeing with that gravel road. So what we hypothesized was that the rain water is falling on these slopes. It's not infiltrating into those slopes, and it's just running off into the basin. And then you continue to have this conglomeration of flooding in that basin. So what we want to do is we want to capture the water, we want to capture the nutrients in the west and east slopes, and reduce the flooding in the basin. And then if we're able to capture the rainwater on those west and east slopes, we should be able to grow grass on those west and east slopes, as well as across the entire basin. And so to do that, we applied compost top dressing, about 120 cubic yards on the slopes. You can see an aerial of that application. We first needed to rake through that gravel period, and that's what those images, the bottom right. Then we apply the compost top dressing, and we reseeded this area. And within a month, or in just about a month, the grass was established, and the kids were playing on the grass in a month and a half. We used no synthetic pesticides. We used no synthetic fertilizers on this project. This was last year. We're really excited to see what this project looks like this spring coming up. And so that's the kind of work that we're able to achieve. Just to recap, we're going to identify sustainable landscaping through introducing Green Shield Certified for Landscapes. We're going to teach it through our Lawn and Land Forum. And finally, we're going to implement it through our Technical Assistance Program. Our Lawn and Land Forum, as I mentioned, has 2 sessions on May 10th and May 12th, covering Green Shield Certified for Landscapes. But the May 10th one is how you can secure support for your sustainable landscaping project. And then the May 12th is how you can, the design, installation, and maintenance characteristics of Green Shield Certified landscape provider or landscape. So if you're interested in any of those webinars, please visit bit.ly/mggNcaps and Weekend Uncaps. We would like as much participation in those webinars as possible. And then the best resource for sustainable landscaping is myself. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Ryan. That was a ton of fantastic information. I took down a bunch of notes, and I'll definitely be visiting your guys' website to kind of recap and learn a little bit more. I looked at the pesticide-free park map that you mentioned, and I don't see any in Glen Ellyn, so maybe that's a goal for the village for this year. Maybe we should attend that upcoming forum. I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but if anyone who's listening has a question, please feel free to enter it in the chat, and Ryan or I can answer your question. One of the questions I had for you, Ryan, was while you were talking, I was going to ask about, I feel like I get so many advertisements in the mail for lawn care that's supposed to be like natural, healthy, green, sustainable, and I know none of those terms are really regulated. So how can I, as a consumer, kind of be sure that whoever's coming to my house, or if I'm buying something myself at the store, that it's going to be safe for my kids to play in and for people to walk on. So do you have suggestions? I know that the Green Shield Certified sounds like a great program, but do you have suggestions until that's in place?
Yeah, so on our resources page, we do have a natural lawn care company list that we know of, companies that offer those services. Not, for some of them, you do need to do your homework because they offer many different services. Some are completely organic. So I would first look at that list. It's called Midwest Natural Lawn Care Companies. That is one of the main reasons why we're coming up with Green Shield Certified for landscapes, is because there is currently no standard out there for sustainable landscaping, organic landscaping, or anything like that. And so we've had experience with and success with pest control companies, and so we think this will be successful out here in the Midwest and nationwide. And to let you know, the first two companies that are scheduling their on-site evaluations are Good Nature Organic Lawn Care, which services the west suburbs right now, and Dig Right In Landscaping, which also services the west suburbs.
Awesome. Great to know. Okay, we have a question from someone. Should you reduce the amount of grass on your property in favor of natural plantings, flowers, etc.? I'll answer from my perspective as a resident non lawn care expert, but I will just say that at my own home, which I've lived in for 5 years, we have grass, but we have some in the front and some in the back. I don't have a huge yard, and I have reduced some of it. Like, number one, it's easier to take care of. Like, not have to cut grass and water grass. So if you do decide to remove some of your grass, one of the best things you could do would be to plant native plants, which, if you're unfamiliar with native plants, they're basically plants that have grown in our area, basically the Illinois climate, or this region, for a long time, hundreds of thousands of years. So they're very well situated to our weird weather, and the very varying temperatures and water, and all that. So once native plants are established, they're very easy to care for, very low maintenance. They require almost no fertilizer or water, and they have very, very deep roots. So another great benefit to your property is it's very good for the soil, and also helps to absorb a lot of groundwater. So it helps a lot, especially in this area that's somewhat prone to flooding. So I have worked over the last couple of years to install some native plants. I have plenty of non-natives too, but there's flowers, grasses, shrubs, trees. There's lots of stuff you can find, and plenty of resources around us. The Morton Arboretum has a plant sale, Conservation Foundation. Those are two local resources that would be able to help you identify where to find native plants and what kind of native plants might work well in your space. So,
And
Ryan, do you want to add anything?
yeah. We're on that same page of saying if you can do native plants, they're less maintenance. If you still do like that kind of manicured look that you get with turf grass, there are actually options of low maintenance turf grass varieties. One thing that we've been promoting a lot and is something called eco lawns, and basically eco lawns uses micro clover. So micro clover is a legume, so it actually recycles nitrogen. So it turns nitrogen gas into ammonium, which is plant accessible, and it's basically free fertilizer for your grass. So if you use these micro clover, and then some of the varieties has different kind of wildflowers like sweet alyssum and stuff like that. It doesn't get into other people's lawns or anything like that. It still has that green look. You don't need to apply any fertilizer because the clover is already doing that. You don't need to apply any pesticides because if you do, you're killing the clover and the flowers that are in it. It's mow once a month, and it's forgetting something else.
Sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's a lot of great benefits to that.
Yeah,
now, is that a specific type of product, or is that just what like a type of seed mix, the Ecolon that you guys have, or where would one find that?
Yeah, so I know there's a couple companies. Some of the providers, I know Good Nature does micro clover lawns. So you can talk to them about that. That would be one company to consider in the area that services. I believe they service up to Glen Ellyn. The company that we work with, or that we've communicated with a lot, that creates the actual seed mixes, and I think you are able to buy on their website. It's called Pro Time Lawn Seed. They're a woman-owned company out in Washington State. And they were the first creators of the eco lawn mixes. So they have 10 or so different varieties. Some are like salt tolerant so that they can handle pet urine a little bit better. And then their main one is called Fleur de Lawn, which has all these different wildflowers in it, along with the micro clover.
Cool. Sounds pretty. Okay, and then there were some additional questions about the companies that are going through the Green Shield certification. So Good Nature Organics. I know I'm familiar with that name, and I have seen their signs around Glen Ellyn, so I know that they're already serving homes around here. And then the other, I think Dig In was the other one.
Dig Right In. Yeah.
Dig Right In. Okay, so the question is, they're going through the process now, but it sounds like they already are incorporating these practices into their service. It's just that they haven't received the certification from you guys. Is that right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's kind of a rigorous process, and we are still. The guide and evaluation for the on-site evaluations is still under review. It'll be done complete by the end of this month. And then we have scheduled our first on-site evaluation for Good Nature next month in May. And so we do that review, and within a month we give them a report of whether or not they've passed all those minimum requirements and 80% or above on those score practices. If they've passed it, then they can be recognized as a Green Shield certified company. If they didn't pass it, they need to address the recommendations that we provide them, and they have about a year to address that, and then to receive their Green Shield certification. So no one has been approved yet. I've just mentioned the companies that have have either set an on-site evaluation or indicated that they will pursue on-site evaluation.
Okay, but you guys do have a list you mentioned of companies that are kind of I know they're not certified yet, but they do kind of the practices that you've mentioned during this presentation, right? That list is on your website.
That we know of, yeah.
Okay.
The verification process is a lot simpler than
And the
what we
green
would do for
shield.
the field.
Yeah. Okay. So for the question about the website name where one would find those, I would just recommend going to the Midwest Grows Green website, because there's a list on there, and that will give you kind of a bunch of different names. In fact, I've been that's where I found mine last year. So there's a question about seeding with the Ecolon. If you can overseed with the Ecolon product, or do you have to remove your existing turf grass? That's a great question, because I know I've looked into adding clover into my yard, and I think it takes a period of time to do that.
Yeah, it depends on the variety that you're choosing. So their main one, Fleur de Lawn, I know they recommend doing it just on pure bare soil. But their dog park eco lawn mix that's called can be interwoven into an existing turf grass. So it just depends on the variety and also variety for the environmental conditions too. Some are more shade tolerant, some are better in sunlight and everything like that.
Okay. I had another question about the watering schedule that you mentioned, especially because, well, first of all, I feel like it's rained every day here for the last, I don't know how long. It seems to be like that here in the spring, that it just rains for the whole month of April and the whole month of May. And then finally summer hits, and I feel like everything is really is dry after that. But you mentioned just doing a thorough watering once a week. So even in like the hot summer, I know Glen Ellyn, we have like the sprinkler rules. You run it even days for even houses, odd days for odd houses. But would you recommend just doing like a very thorough watering once a week instead of every other day, or however people are, will tend to do it?
Yeah, once a week. And in the summer, I would consider just letting your grass go dormant. So if most people have Kentucky bluegrass, if not, you also have fescue, but both of those brands can go dormant for an extended period of time. Kentucky bluegrass can go dormant for up to 8 weeks and it'll still be okay. So I know some people don't like brown lawns, but that's just a natural thing for turf grass to go through. So yeah, so that would be my recommendation through the summer, through these really droughty seasons, especially because the grass on your lawns is probably not getting as much foot traffic as an athletic field. Athletic field is a different story, but for a home lawn, letting go dormant is completely fine.
Okay, that's good to know. And that is certainly easy. I kind of like lazy lawn care myself, because I take care of it in my house. So speaking of that, I wanted to ask you about an initiative I've heard a little bit about. You might know, it's called No Mow May, which I understand, I was actually reading that it's very big up in Wisconsin, in Appleton, Wisconsin, and they just did a study there where residents were asked to not mow their grass in May. Have you heard about it? And can you talk a little bit about the No Mow May initiative?
Yeah. Actually, I think I talked to the organizer just before the pandemic or something like that. Might have been during the pandemic. But yeah, so No Mow May is, the concept is for the whole month, you let the grass just grow, and that'll attract pollinators, and by not doing any maintenance and stuff like that, that's better for the pollinators and wildlife. And it's a thing that we definitely support. The main barrier is you need to know your city ordinances and stuff like that. So some cities have length or height limits on your grass. And so if they have that limit and you let your grass grow above, then you're going to get complaints. So you want to make sure that the city is behind that before participating. And it's normally better if like a Go Green group or our environmental commission is supporting that. But yeah, it's a really great initiative. I think it raises a lot of great awareness. You know, we would support it. It's not like one of our projects because it was obviously started in Appleton, Wisconsin, as a more grassroots movement.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I was reading that for Wisconsin, they said they found like 5 times more bees and 3 times more bee species just in I think the 2 years that they've been doing it, and it's now spread through a lot of other communities there. Okay, so someone just asked to confirm the name of the company in Washington with the different varieties of the Ecolon products. You said it was Pro-Time Lawn Seed, was that right?
Yeah. Okay. Pro-Time Lawn Seed.
Okay. All right, so we're at 8 o'clock. So if there's any other questions, you can feel free to put them into the chat. And Brenna, can you confirm, I believe the recording of this will be posted to the library's webpage?
Yes, that's correct. It'll probably be up sometime next week.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thanks so much everyone for joining. We really appreciate your attendance, and we look forward to seeing some no mow lawns this May in Glen Ellyn. Thanks everyone.